Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Xylar's 3 hearts pounded in sync as he watched the blue-green planet grow larger on the view screen. Earth. The forbidden world. The very thought of it sent a thrill down his spines. Xylar knew he shouldn't be here. His parents had explicitly warned him about Earth, a primitive, unpredictable planet that was too dangerous for someone his age. But Xylar's curiosity had always been his driving force, and today, it had driven him to break all the rules. His small spacecraft hummed quietly as it entered Earth's atmosphere, shaking slightly from the friction. Xylar glanced over his shoulder at his companions, Gibber, Fluff, and Gleek, who were huddled together in the cargo bay, their bright eyes wide with excitement. These weren't just any pets, they were Xylar's closest friends, each with unique abilities that made them special even on their home planet of Zorith. Gibber, a small, sleek creature with iridescent scales, could mimic any sound it heard. It was a natural prankster, using its abilities to create confusion and chaos, much to Xylar's amusement. Fluff was a soft, cloud-like being that could change its size and shape at will, from a tiny, harmless puffball to a towering, formidable figure. Then there was Gleek, the most mysterious of the trio. With a single thought, Gleek could alter its surroundings, creating illusions, changing colors, and even manipulating objects in the environment. Xylar had often daydreamed about bringing them to Earth, imagining all the fun they could have exploring this strange and uncharted world. And now, finally, they were here. The spacecraft landed softly in a secluded alleyway in the middle of a sprawling city. Xylar activated the cloaking device, ensuring that the ship would remain hidden from prying human eyes. The city buzzed with life, horns blaring, people shouting, and the constant hum of machinery. Xylar's senses were overwhelmed by the sheer volume and variety of sounds, smells, and sights. This was nothing like the orderly, quiet cities of Zorith. This was wild. This was thrilling. All right, guys, Xylar said, turning to his pets. Remember, we need to keep a low profile. We're here to explore, not cause trouble. Gibber chirped in response, already mimicking the distant sound of a police siren. Fluff expanded slightly, its soft, fur-like surface shimmering in the dim light of the alley. Gleek's eyes glowed as it absorbed the new environment, ready to play with its surroundings. Xylar grinned and opened the cargo bay door. Let's go. The pets shot out of the ship, their excitement impossible to contain. Xylar followed, trying to keep up as they darted through the alley and into the bustling streets. The city was a maze of towering buildings, flashing lights, and people everywhere. Xylar marveled at the variety of humans, tall, short, thin, and stout, with different skin tones and hairstyles. It was a far cry from the homogeneity of his people. Gibber was the first to cause trouble. As they passed a row of parked cars, Gibber stopped, cocked its head, and began mimicking the sound of a car alarm. The real car alarms quickly followed suit, creating a cacophony that echoed down the street. Passers-by looked around in confusion, trying to locate the source of the noise. Xylar groaned. Gibber, stop it. But Gibber was too amused by its own antics. It switched to mimicking the sound of a police siren, sending a group of pedestrians into a mild panic. Xylar rushed forward, scooping Gibber into his arms. We're supposed to be exploring, not making a scene. Gibber let out a series of chirps that sounded suspiciously like laughter, but it quieted down, much to Xylar's relief. Fluff, however, was another story. Drawn to the shiny surfaces of the buildings, Fluff started to grow, its soft form stretching upward until it was nearly twice Xylar's height. Its surface reflected the city lights, turning it into a giant, glowing blob that floated above the ground. People stopped in their tracks, staring up at the massive, fluffy creature with wide eyes. A few took out their phones, snapping pictures and recording videos. Xylar's panic rose. This was the exact opposite of keeping a low profile. Fluff, shrink down. Now! Xylar whispered urgently, looking around to make sure no one was getting too close. Fluff hesitated for a moment, seemingly enjoying the attention, but eventually complied, shrinking back down to its original size. Xylar breathed a sigh of relief, but his heart sank as he noticed Gleek was nowhere to be seen. Gleek had always been the most independent of the group, and Xylar should have known it wouldn't stay by his side for long. He scanned the area, trying to spot the shimmering form of his pet. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw something strange. A nearby building was changing colors, shifting from gray concrete to bright pink, then green, then a deep, iridescent blue. "Oh no," Xylar muttered, pushing through the crowd to get a better view. Sure enough, there was Gleek, perched on top of the building, its eyes glowing as it toyed with the structure's appearance. The humans below gasped and pointed, bewildered by the sudden transformation. Xylar's 3 hearts pounded in unison as he realized how out of control things were getting. He needed to get his pets back to the ship before they attracted even more attention. Gibber, Fluff, Gleek, come on. We need to go. Xylar called out, trying to herd his pets back towards the alley, but they were too enthralled by their new playground to listen. Gibber took off again, this time mimicking the sound of human voices, causing even more confusion. Fluff expanded once more, playfully bouncing between buildings, and Gleek was completely absorbed in its color-shifting game. Xylar was at a loss. How was he supposed to control them when everything on this planet was so new and exciting? He hadn't anticipated how difficult it would be to keep them in check, especially in such a stimulating environment. Just as he was about to give up and activate the ship's recall system, which would automatically transport them back to the safety of the spacecraft, he heard the sound of a commotion down the street. Xylar's antennae perked up as he noticed a group of humans, wearing uniforms and carrying strange devices, approaching the area. They looked official, and Xylar's stomach dropped as he realized they must be some kind of Earth authorities. He needed to act fast. With a quick, telepathic command, Xylar summoned his pets to his side. Gibber was the first to respond, flying into his arms with a series of trilling sounds that mimicked human speech. Fluff followed, shrinking down and wrapping itself around Xylar like a soft, protective cloak. But Gleek was still reluctant, its eyes glowing brightly as it finished its artistic transformation of the building. "Gleek, please," Xylar pleaded, his voice trembling. "We need to go now." Gleek hesitated for a moment, then finally relented, leaping down from the building and landing gracefully beside Xylar. Relieved, Xylar quickly activated his cloaking device, making them invisible to the approaching humans. They slipped away from the scene, moving quickly through the crowded streets and back into the safety of the alley where their ship was hidden. Xylar's mind raced as he considered what to do next. Clearly, the city was too chaotic for them to explore safely. He needed to find a place where they could have fun without causing so much trouble. After a quick scan of the surrounding area, Xylar found a solution: a large expanse of green far away from the city, where the noise and crowds wouldn't be an issue. It looked like a park of some sort, with open fields, trees, and even a few small lakes. It was perfect. Without wasting any more time, Xylar guided the ship to the park, keeping it cloaked as they landed in a secluded spot. Once they were safely on the ground, Xylar opened the hatch and let his pets out to explore. Gibber immediately darted off to mimic the sounds of birds and insects, its joy evident in the playful tones it produced. Fluff expanded once again, but this time it took the form of a large, fluffy tree, blending in with the natural surroundings. Gleek, fascinated by the new environment, started to create illusions of strange, otherworldly plants and creatures, turning the park into a surreal, alien landscape. Xyler couldn't help but smile as he watched his pets frolic in the grass. This was what he had imagined, an adventure where they could explore and enjoy themselves without causing too much trouble. He sat down under a tree, enjoying the peaceful sounds of nature, and let himself relax for the first time since they had arrived on Earth. But the peace didn't last long. As the sun began to set, the park started to fill with people, families out for evening walks, joggers getting their exercise, and children playing games. Xyler's heart skipped a beat as he realized that they weren't as alone as he had thought. The humans were bound to notice the strange happenings in the park sooner or later. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the first cry of surprise rang out. A group of children had discovered Fluff's tree-like form and were now climbing on it, laughing and shouting as Fluff adjusted its branches to accommodate them. Nearby, a couple of joggers had stopped in their tracks, staring in bewilderment at the alien plants and creatures that Gleek had created. Panic surged through Xyler once more. He needed to get his pets out of here before things escalated further. But before he could call them back, the situation took an unexpected turn. One of the children who had been climbing on Fluff suddenly slipped and fell. The child screamed as he tumbled through the air, but before he could hit the ground, Fluff reacted. It expanded its branches, catching the child gently and lowering him safely to the ground. The other children cheered, thinking it was all part of the fun, but the adults in the park weren't so sure. Xyler could see the fear and confusion spreading through the crowd. This wasn't the kind of chaos they had caused in the city. This was something different. The humans were starting to realize that something was very wrong, and then, as if on cue, the same group of uniformed humans from the city appeared, this time armed with strange, glowing devices. Xyler's mind raced as he tried to think of a way out. If they were caught, there was no telling what the humans might do to them. Just as the authorities were closing in, Xyler made a snap decision. He activated the ship's recall system, and in an instant, he and his pets were transported back to the safety of the spacecraft. The park vanished from view, replaced by the familiar interior of the ship. Xyler's hearts were still pounding as he slumped into the pilot's seat, his pets huddling close to him. They had barely escaped, and now it was clear that they couldn't stay on Earth any longer. The humans were too curious, too unpredictable. It was only a matter of time before someone got hurt. With a heavy heart, Xyler set a course for home. He had wanted an adventure, but this had been more than he had bargained for. As the ship lifted off and left Earth's atmosphere, Xyler looked back at the planet, a mix of emotions swirling inside him. He knew he'd be in trouble when he got home. His parents would be furious, and he'd likely be grounded for a long time. But despite everything that had happened, Xyler couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had explored a new world, made new friends, and even though things hadn't gone as planned, he had learned a lot. And as for his pets, they had had the time of their lives. Gibber, Fluff, and Gleek were already settling down, their excitement finally wearing off as they curled up in their respective spots on the ship. Xyler smiled as he watched them, knowing that they had shared an experience that they would never forget. As the ship sped away from Earth, Xyler let out a sigh of relief. He had made it through the adventure, and now it was time to go home. But as he gazed out at the stars, he couldn't help but wonder what other worlds were out there, waiting to be explored. Maybe one day, when he was older and wiser, he'd return to Earth. But for now, he was content to dream about the possibilities, his imagination running wild with thoughts of new adventures. And as he set the ship on autopilot and settled into his seat, Xyler knew that this was just the beginning. The universe was vast, and there were so many more worlds to explore. Earth had been his first taste of true adventure, but it wouldn't be his last. With that comforting thought, Xyler closed his eyes, letting the gentle hum of the ship lull him to sleep. His dreams were filled with visions of distant planets, strange creatures, and the endless possibilities that awaited him in the far reaches of the galaxy. But for now, it was time to rest. Tomorrow was a new day, and who knew what adventures it might bring?